What is the most disturbing thing to know? Flies don't have teeth. So, when they land on your sandwich and want to eat some, they barf up the contents of their stomach, often containing another animal's shit, so the digestive enzymes can get on the food, and then they eat. There are guys with a fetish to cut off their dongs. There are 32 missing nuclear weapons, and those are only the ones that we know of. Often, burnt bodies are found in the same stands, known as the boxer post, due to muscles contracting from heat. It's an incredibly disturbing looking thing. I first heard about it from my grandfather, that fought in Burma. During the war he was present at a Burmese funeral in which the cadaver was burnt on a pyre. Just as the flames began to singe the corpse, it sat up straight. The Burmese, of course, got a good laugh out of the British soldiers collectively shitting themselves. As contractions due to heat during cremation is apparently rather common, doesn't make it any less creepy. Anything can happen to anyone at any moment. I had my first seizure at 18. No family member has had epilepsy before. Never take anything for granted. It can all change in an instant. Cyanide poisoning is an incredibly painful way to die. Cyanide was what Jonestown consumed for mass suicide. Parents were instructed to give it to their children, and convinced the crying was just fear. Sarin gas is one of the worst ways to kill another human being, and we have seen multiple instances where it has been used on innocent people. Whether relaxed or contracting, your muscles need certain signals in order to function. When you flex a muscle, a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine floods the muscle cells, telling them to contract. Your brain eventually tells the muscles to stop contracting, and so that acetylcholine has to be removed. This is done with acetylcholinesterase, an enzyme which breaks it down and allows your muscles to relax. This happens for every movement of every muscle in your body, whether you're flexing your bicep or blinking. Every beat of your heart. Sarin kills because it bonds with acetylcholinesterase, completely changing its structure and rendering the enzyme useless. This means your muscles never relax. They flex harder and harder and harder. Your entire body can cramp your pupils. Everything. The burning gets worse and worse, and the pain is unbearable. If enough of it enters the bloodstream, usually via skin, it will lock up your diaphragm, and you will asphyxiate. It kills quickly, but I struggle to imagine too many things that would be worse than dying from cramps in muscles you didn't even realize existed. It's not the worst weapon humans have at their disposal, as if you survive a sarin attack you're likely to make a full recovery, as it doesn't scar lung tissue like other chemical weapons. That being said, it's still classified as a weapon of mass destruction, and is supposed to be banned. During World War II, Japan bombed China with fleas infected with the bubonic plague. Pelicans are some of the most demonic birds in existence, if not some of the most demonic creatures. Pelicans will go into other birds' nests, shove the parents out of the nest. They will then swallow babies whole, fly back to their own nests, and regurgitate the still half alive, partially digested babies to their own babies for them to consume. Some pelicans are literally raised on the partially digested, living flesh of other baby birds. Fun fact: pelicans started eating birds because the fish populations they ate became scarce. It was birds or starvation. Welcome to human depletion of global resources. In my country, some women rent babies to beg money within the streets. They make them drink a pill that would make them sleep. If you try to grab the brain in its natural state, it will fall apart. When you see scientists pick up the brain, they have used chemicals to harden it. 1/3 of all people who break their hip die within the year, so please take pillows to your elderly relatives. One aspect of foster care: some people will take their child to a doctor. Child gets diagnosed with cancer. Child goes to first appointment. Kid gets wheeled back for treatment. Parents then leave, go home, pack and disappear. The kid is in the treatment waiting room, waiting for parents that will never ever come. Sick and facing death alone. It doesn't happen a lot, but enough to have processes in place. The worst is when they are like 4, although a 7-year-old was also rough. Also, it's biological parents that abandon them at the hospital, but foster parents do too. Especially if the first foster parents are relatives that were strongly asked to foster. Polar bears are the only bear species that actively hunt and kill humans for food. There's a rhyme that everyone living where bears live needs to know, and why the rhyme is so important. If it's brown, lie down. Brown or grizzly bears will leave you alone if you play dead. Climbing up a tall tree works with adult brown bears, since they can't climb trees. If it's black, fight back. Black bears will back off when they realize you're more of a threat than they realize. But do not climb a tree to escape. Both cubs and adult black bears can climb trees. If it's white, say goodnight. Polar bears are not only the largest bears, but they are ambush predators. If one manages to sneak up on you, you're as good as dead. The best you can do to escape is either run and drop your clothes. Fortunately for you, they have very short attention spans and they'll stop momentarily to sniff at your clothes, because it's not normal for their food to suddenly drop something like that, or start praying to whatever deity you believe or don't believe in. This is all advice for if the bear decides to try and eat you. Generally speaking, if you do come across a bear, you never, ever run away. Stand your ground. Make yourself look big and be loud. If the bear stands on its hind legs, it's just checking you out. It's curious and has likely never seen a human before. The best option is to back away slowly while maintaining eye contact, still being loud. If the bear decides to charge, use an air horn or bear spray, which will likely cause to run off. I would too if I just got maced. However, as a last resort, use a gun or other weapon if it becomes aggressive or starts mauling. If it's brown, lay down. If it's black, fight back. If it's white, say goodnight. If it's gummy, get in tummy. One of Mayhem's band members committed suicide when he was found by his bandmate. Pictures were taken, and it became the new album cover. The photographer was subsequently murdered by Varg Vikernes, who masterminded church burnings. That if you have owls, you're more than likely going to suffocate to death. My mom used to work for this elder gentleman who suffered from owls. One day she gets a call that he's passed away in his apartment. From what she told me, she walked in, and his eyes were wide open and his mouth was open, permanently left gasping for air. Owls is a neurodegenerative disease that causes people to lose control over their nerves over time to the point of near vegetative state. Most people don't last very long once diagnosed, because they lose the ability to expand their chest to breathe and pretty much choke to death. That sadder thing about it, that you could be fully awake when this happens and have no way of stopping it. The value of a human body. There is value to the human body as a commodity, and different parts of our body are worth different amounts. While corneas are small, they fetch a large price, 15,000, or about 22,450, whereas our skeleton garners significantly less, 5,000, about 7,483. The price also depends on whether the body part is sold for specimen use, transplants, or on the black market. The mineral value of our body is like $3. On the brighter side, I would add that this is what motivates me to believe we can achieve something great as individuals as well as part of a team. We are just a bunch of cheap, easily purchased minerals, yet that is hardly all we are. The Nutty Putty Cave accident. Google for full disturbing details. A map of the cave, but basically a guy got stuck caving in a very narrow unmapped tunnel, upside down. They could not get him out, but almost did. One of the rescuers made eye contact with him apparently, but then their pulley system broke, and he fell further down. Unfortunately, he ended up dying of cardiac arrest from being upside down for so long, and they couldn't get him out, never retrieved the body, because it was too dangerous for rescuers. Truly so disturbing. I've thought about it probably once a week, since I found out about it a few months ago. Calling that situation the Nutty Putty Cave incident is such an unfittingly hilarious name for such a tragedy. If I was him, the only thing I would be thinking is I'm about to die in a place called the Ducking Nutty Putty Cave. If an elephant's mate dies, then they can die from broken heart syndrome. Hotels rarely clean their ice machines. I work as an anesthesiologist. I've put people to sleep in an emergency situation knowing that they will almost certainly not survive the surgery. These are generally situations where without surgery the patient will not survive, but even with surgery the chances of survival are still small. In most of these instances the patients are too obtunded or aren't conscious enough to be aware of the gravity of their situation, but in a number of instances the patients have been conscious, talking although clearly anxious. I try to reassure and tell the person that we won't leave their side, that we will take care of them, and that they will be fine. It kind of ducks me up a bit to say this to someone, but I always include the last part because I just don't see the point in telling them the truth. I had one guy tell me he felt like he wasn't going to make it. I told him he would make it, but knew he wasn't going to. I put him to sleep knowing that the last human face he would see before he died was mine as he stared up at me as I held an oxygen mask over his mouth and nose. I'd consider myself quite a resilient person, but knowing this stuff is a bit of a load to carry around. My late wife went through so many surgeries while dealing with cancer over a period of 3 years. It was down to a routine eventually where we would basically high five before she went under. The last time, she didn't come back out, but your job, every time. I appreciated you. Thank you for what you do. I know it's a ton to handle. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.